It was a typical Thursday night, or so I thought. I had been sitting on the couch for hours, trying to shake off the nagging feeling that something wasn't right. My wife, Sarah, had gone out earlier in the evening, claiming she was meeting some friends for dinner. Nothing out of the ordinary, right? But for the past few weeks, something had changed in her behavior. Little things that never bothered me before suddenly seemed off. I sat there, mind racing, as I glanced over the photos on my phone, evidence I had carefully collected over the past few days. Text messages, social media activity, calls, pieces of the puzzle I had painstakingly pieced together. Everything led to the same conclusion: my wife, the woman I thought I knew, was having an affair. And tonight, I had proof. I didn't want to believe it at first. The doubts had clouded my mind, but I refused to confront her until I had no other choice. But now, as I heard the door open, I knew the moment had come. The smell of perfume hit me before she even stepped inside. Sarah walked in, smiling, chatting about her evening. She was radiant, glowing even. Her cheeks were flushed with excitement, her laugh genuine. Everything about her screamed happiness. A happiness that had nothing to do with me. "You wouldn't believe how much fun I had tonight," she said, her voice light and carefree. "We went to this amazing new restaurant in the city. It was perfect." I looked at her, trying to hold back the anger that was bubbling up inside me. She had no idea. No idea that I was fully aware of her secret. Of the man she'd been seeing behind my back. "Must have been a really good night," I replied, my voice steady but with an edge she didn't notice. Her smile faltered for just a moment, but she quickly recovered. She was too happy, too comfortable. I was supposed to be the one who didn't know. But tonight, I was ready. Ready to break the silence. "I don't think you'll be smiling after this," I said, locking eyes with her. And for the first time, I saw her confidence crack. The smile faded from her face, and I could see her mind racing, wondering how I had found out. But it was too late now. The truth was out, and there was nowhere to run. Her world was about to collapse. And I was going to make sure she understood the weight of what she had done. The silence hung thick between us for a moment as Sarah set her purse down on the counter. Her smile had completely disappeared now, replaced by confusion and unease. The air felt heavier than it ever had before. I could see her mind scrambling, piecing together the puzzle in her head. The usual confidence that had always been her armor was nowhere to be found. She was vulnerable now, caught in her lie, and I could see it in her eyes. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice slightly faltering. Her gaze was fixed on me, but it was no longer the playful, affectionate look I had grown used to. It was guarded, cautious. Something was wrong, and she knew it. I leaned forward, my heart pounding in my chest as I took a deep breath. "You know exactly what I mean, Sarah. Don't play dumb." My voice was calm, but beneath it was a rising tide of rage, disappointment, and betrayal. For weeks now, I had watched her come home later than usual, her phone glued to her hand, her texts a little too secretive. There was a distance between us that I couldn't ignore. But what really made my suspicions spiral into certainty was the night I found a photo. A photo of Sarah and another man, someone I didn't recognize, taken at the restaurant she'd claimed to be visiting tonight. She looked so happy in that photo. Too happy. A happiness I hadn't seen in months. The realization had struck me like a bolt of lightning. She had been lying to me, living a double life, and the weight of it all was suffocating. But I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Not anymore. "You know, it's funny," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "All these little changes in you, all the secrets, the late nights, the strange behavior. It wasn't hard to figure out. But this time, I wanted to be sure. So, I did my homework." Sarah's eyes flickered with panic as she stepped back, her hands gripping the back of a chair for support. She didn't speak for a few seconds, as if she was trying to gather her thoughts or think of a way out. But there was no escape from this. She couldn't talk her way out of the truth. How could you do this to me, Sarah? After all these years? My voice cracked, and I hated myself for showing that weakness. But the hurt was so overwhelming, it was hard to contain. Sarah finally spoke, her voice trembling. I didn't mean for it to happen this way. It just happened. Don't give me that, I shot back, standing up now, my fists clenching at my sides. Don't tell me it just happened. You planned this. You made a choice. And now you're sitting here acting like it's nothing. Like I'm the one who's crazy for being upset. I could feel the anger rising in my chest, the betrayal like a knife twisting inside me. But I wasn't going to let her off the hook. Not this time. Her gaze dropped to the floor, unable to meet mine. She knew she had no defense. I'm sorry, she whispered, her voice small, regretful. But it didn't matter. Apologies were meaningless now. What could she say that would take back the past few weeks? What could she say that would undo the damage? Nothing. But even in my fury, I could see the guilt on her face. She was terrified. She was cornered. I could see her struggling to find words, to explain away what she had done. But there was nothing she could say that would make it better. I saw the photo, Sarah, I said, my tone a little colder now. I know about him. So don't even try to act like I don't know. Her face went pale as if all the blood drained from her body. She took a step back, her breath coming in quick, shallow bursts. For a moment, she looked like she might faint. She was trying to gather herself, but there was nowhere for her to hide now. That photo, you've been seeing him, haven't you? I continued, taking another step toward her. My voice was firm, each word cutting through the tension like a blade. You've been spending time with him, lying to me, telling me everything's fine when all along, you've been planning to leave. Haven't you? She swallowed hard, her throat dry. I could see the tears welling up in her eyes, but she quickly wiped them away before they could fall. She couldn't show weakness. Not to me. But I wasn't looking for tears or remorse, I wanted the truth. I didn't mean to hurt you, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. She took another step back, her body shaking. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I shook my head. You don't get it, do you? Sorry doesn't fix this. Sorry doesn't change the fact that you were planning to leave me. You were going to run off with him, weren't you? The words were out before I could stop them, and when I saw the flash of guilt in her eyes, I knew I was right. It was all becoming so clear now. The late nights, the lies, the way she'd pulled away from me emotionally. She had been planning this for a while. And the worst part? She thought I wouldn't notice. I didn't want it to go this far, she said, the words barely audible. I was confused. I didn't know what to do. He makes me feel special in ways that you don't anymore. I've been feeling neglected, and I didn't know how to fix it. Her words hit me like a slap to the face. Neglected? How could she say that? We had built a life together. We had a family. And for her to throw it all away for some fleeting excitement with another man, it was almost too much to bear. So that's it, then? I asked, my voice shaking now with a mixture of disbelief and rage. You're just going to throw everything away because you're confused? Because someone else makes you feel special? What about us, Sarah? What about everything we've built? She didn't answer. Instead, she just stood there, her eyes welling with tears, looking at me like she was waiting for me to forgive her. But I couldn't. Not this time. Not after everything she had done. I don't know what I want anymore, she whispered, her voice barely audible, the guilt and regret weighing heavily on her shoulders. I don't know if I can fix this. I don't think you can, I said coldly. You've already broken it. The silence that followed was deafening. We both stood there in the middle of our home, once filled with love and shared memories, now hollow and empty. I couldn't believe we had come to this point. That the woman I trusted the most had betrayed me so completely. But as I stared at her, the truth became undeniable. This wasn't about mistakes or confusion. This was about choices. Choices she had made without any regard for me or for the life we had together. And as she stood there, waiting for me to say something, anything, I realized that nothing she said would ever change the fact that everything between us had changed. The tension in the room was palpable. I could feel every nerve in my body igniting as I watched Sarah, standing there, desperately trying to piece together her shattered words. She was trying to explain herself, to make sense of everything that had spiraled out of control, but it didn't matter anymore. The truth was right in front of her, and there was no hiding from it. Why? I asked again, this time my voice breaking, cracking under the weight of the hurt. Why, Sarah? Why him? Why not us? I had always thought that I knew her. I thought I could read her like an open book. I thought our bond was unbreakable. But everything had been shattered in the space of a few weeks, and now she stood there, trying to offer weak excuses when the raw truth was staring both of us in the face. I don't know, she whispered, her voice strained with guilt. I didn't want to hurt you. I never meant to fall for him. It just happened. I shook my head, a bitter laugh escaping my lips, though it felt more like a choke. It just happened. I repeated, almost incredulously. You fell for him. You fell for him, but you didn't fall for me, huh? After all this time? After everything we've been through? She looked away, unable to meet my eyes. I could see the shame on her face, the regret that was now too little, too late. But then, something inside me snapped. Maybe it was the exhaustion, or maybe it was the sense of betrayal that had been eating away at me, but I couldn't keep it in anymore. You're still not getting it, are you, Sarah? I asked, taking a step closer, my voice rising. This isn't about some random affair. This isn't about the fact that you've been with another man. It's about the lies. The manipulation. The fact that you've been living a double life and thought I wouldn't notice. You've been planning this for months, haven't you? She flinched, as if the accusation had physically struck her. Her eyes were wide, her breath shaky. The guilt was too much to contain, and she started to cry, but even the tears felt hollow. I didn't mean to, she sobbed. I swear, I never wanted things to end like this. I thought I could fix it. I thought I could fix us. But what she didn't understand, what she couldn't understand, was that there was no fixing this. Not after everything that had happened. Not after the betrayal. Not after I had seen the cold, calculated way she had detached herself from me, from our marriage, and allowed herself to fall into the arms of another man. She had already chosen him. I backed away, feeling like I needed to breathe, needing the space to think, to absorb the weight of what I was hearing. You didn't want this to end like this? I asked bitterly. Well, I'm sorry, but it has. You've already made your choice, Sarah. She wiped her eyes, but the tears wouldn't stop. I love him, she whispered. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I love him, but I still love you too. I stood frozen. Love. She loved him. The man she'd been sneaking around with. The man she'd lied to me about, the man who had taken her attention away from me, away from our family. And she was telling me that she loved him, but still loved me too. Was she trying to soften the blow, to make me believe that this was all just a momentary lapse in judgment? But I knew better now. Is that supposed to make me feel better? I asked, my voice cold and distant. You're telling me that you love both of us? How does that even make sense? How can you love him and still look me in the eyes? For the first time, Sarah looked truly defeated. She seemed to shrink in front of me, the weight of her own choices crashing down on her. But I wasn't about to pity her. I wasn't about to let her twist this into something it wasn't. She had made her bed. Now she would have to lie in it. Do you even hear yourself? I continued, taking another step toward her, the anger and pain rising in my chest. You're trying to tell me that you love him, but somehow it doesn't erase the fact that you've been with him behind my back. It doesn't erase the lies, the secrets. It doesn't erase the fact that you had been planning to leave me all along. You were already gone before I even knew it. She flinched at the sharpness of my words, but the truth was there, undeniable. It was staring both of us in the face. She had fallen out of love with me, and no matter how much she claimed to still care, the damage was done. Stop, she whispered, holding her hands out as if she could somehow stop the words from coming. I'm sorry. I didn't want it to go this far. I was just looking for something that I couldn't find here. I didn't think I could talk to you about it. I didn't think you'd understand. But you didn't even try, I shot back. You didn't try to fix it. You didn't try to talk to me, to work through the problems we were having. Instead, you chose him. You chose him because it was easier. And now, here we are. The silence between us was thick, suffocating. Sarah looked down at her hands, shaking with regret, but I could see now that the remorse in her eyes wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to undo the damage. It wasn't enough to repair the fracture that had already split our lives apart. You should go, I said finally, my voice almost a whisper, the exhaustion in my tone clear. You've made your choice. And now, you need to live with it. Her face crumpled, and she took a step forward, as though to reach out to me, to beg for forgiveness, but I stepped back, putting distance between us. I'm sorry, she whispered again, but it was too late. Sorry wouldn't bring back the trust. Sorry wouldn't fix the hole she had created in my heart. With one final, lingering look, she turned and walked out of the door, leaving me standing there, staring after her, the weight of everything she had done slowly crushing me from the inside. I wanted to hate her. I wanted to be angry, to scream, to make her understand the depth of the pain she had caused. But in that moment, I realized that anger wasn't going to fix anything. And no matter how much I wished it weren't true, the love we once had was gone. And so was she. I stood in the empty room, the echoes of Sarah's departure still ringing in my ears. The silence felt like a weight pressing down on me, heavy and oppressive, like the air itself was thick with unanswered questions and unresolved feelings. She was gone, but the truth of what had just happened still lingered in the corners of my mind. I didn't know if I was angry, heartbroken, or just numb. Maybe I was all of those things at once. My mind kept replaying the moments from the last few weeks, the sudden distance between us, the coldness that crept in unnoticed, the moments when I had tried to reach out and bridge the gap only to be met with indifference. All along, there had been something in her eyes, a secret, a hidden truth I couldn't see at the time. Now, it was all so clear. She had already made her decision long before that night. She had already made her choice, and I had been blind to it. It wasn't about the affair anymore. It wasn't about the lies or the betrayal. It was about the realization that I had been living with someone who was no longer the person I thought she was. The woman I had loved for so long, the woman I had built my life with, was gone. And in her place stood a stranger who had made decisions I could never understand. But even more than that, there was a haunting question in the back of my mind: could I ever trust again? Could I ever let myself be vulnerable with someone else after what Sarah had done? And what did that even mean for me now? Was I destined to be trapped in a cycle of distrust, unable to open up to anyone else? Or was this just another chapter, a painful but necessary one, that would eventually fade into the past? I picked up my phone from the counter, almost instinctively. A part of me wanted to call her, wanted to hear her voice again, to ask why did she have to betray me like this? But I knew better. I knew that any conversation at this point would only reopen wounds that were still raw and bleeding. There was no going back, and even if there were, I didn't know if I would want to. Could I forgive her? Could I forgive myself for not seeing the signs, for not confronting the truth sooner? But as I stood there in the silence of our once shared space, I realized something else. This wasn't just about Sarah. It was about me too. About the life I had built for myself. I had been living in the shadow of this betrayal for far too long, allowing it to define me, to define my self-worth. The thought of starting over was terrifying. The thought of facing the world again without the woman I had planned my future with felt like stepping into the unknown. But as the night wore on, as the adrenaline of confrontation slowly wore off, something inside me began to shift. Maybe it was time to rebuild. Time to rediscover who I was without the weight of this heartbreak. Time to find out if I was still the man I once was, or if I had been changed by all of this, if I could ever trust again, if I could ever love again. As I looked out the window, the night sky stretching endlessly before me, I couldn't help but wonder about the future. Was this really the end? Was this truly the final chapter of my story with Sarah? Or was it just the beginning of something new, something I couldn't yet understand? I didn't have the answers. I didn't even know where to begin. But for the first time in a long while, I felt a flicker of hope, small and fragile but present. Maybe I wasn't as broken as I thought. Maybe, in the end, this would make me stronger. But no matter what came next, I knew one thing for sure: I was done living in the shadows of someone else's choices. The betrayal had happened. It was real. But it didn't define me. And as the night stretched on, I realized that my journey, my own story, was far from over. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, it felt like I had control over it again. I had the power to move forward. And maybe, just maybe, it was time to reclaim my life.